Hi friends, and welcome back to the Cyberhaggis channel. In this video I'll be using some of these materials to create a lazy basing method. In another, make mistakes so you don't have to.
Make mistakes so you don't have to.
Thanks to all my new recent subscribers. If you enjoy watching me make mistakes so that it saves you money and time and effort, then please consider joining them. Like and subscribe and leave a comment below in this video. I hope you enjoy it. When I'm basing miniatures or I'm doing some basing for my scenics, I often use wall filler, other brands are available, to build up the base. Now, for those of you who aren't sort of aware about what that looks like, here is a miniature that doesn't have any. And you can still see the tab on the base of his feet. And here's one that I've built up the base with some wall filler. So as you can see, you can't see the tab anymore, and it's given it a ground level layer that you can then put different textures onto, different substrates, static grass, whatever. Now I thought to myself, could I add in an even lazier layer to this? Could I add just some other substrates, other materials directly into the wall filler prior to putting it onto the base and get those different nice textures and things? So what I'm going to do, I've got some old MDF hexagons from a project long past. I believe this was for an infinity project that I never finished. Big surprise there. And I'm going to put a layer of the wall filler onto each of these. But prior to doing that, I'm going to add different things into the wall filler. I've got a selection of different materials. I'm going to add them in and then just go through piece by piece and show you what the effect was, making the mistake so you don't have to. I've cleared myself some extra space there. Any good scientist to tell you, when you're conducting an experiment, even one as stupid as this, you need a control. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the MDF hexagons and I'm going to put on just some filler with nothing in it, just so that at the end we can find out what it looks like compared to all the others. And that way we've got something to look back on and say, actually, this didn't work. And I'm going to be a really good scientist and I'm going to log all this. So the first one we've got no filler. And then this one we're going to put in as having filler on it and nothing else. I'm just going to stick that on there with a little bit of glue. This is going to get messy. I love it. So, filler only. So we've got no filler, filler. Now I'm going to move on to something else. First thing I'm going to add, probably an obvious one. I've got some sand, or possibly the worst coffee ever made. And I'm just going to blob a bit of filler into here. Add a bit of sand to it. Mix that together. I think that's probably enough. That looks like it's giving it a different kind of texture. I'll take one of my hexagons. And I'm going to layer it onto there. There we go. Stick that to one side, out of the way. Get my science sheet. And I'm going to stick that onto there as having sand. Right, on to the next substrate. Next up, little left field here, I've got some charcoal for birds. Now, if anyone hasn't seen this before, this is kind of what it looks like. I'm going to stick some of that into my pot with some of the... I'm not sure how much of this, I don't think I'll need much of this, to be honest with you. A little bit in and see what happens. Get some of my filler. I think I'll need a little bit more just to properly mix it through. Okay, let's get a hex. Splat that on. Ooh, there's an awful lot on there. And I see already, add this to your science notes, kids. This is a bit harder to work with because it's clumping. Quite blobby. You know, it might give you an interesting texture once it's dried. Let's add that to the sheet. The science sheet. Charcoal. Charcoal. Now, one of the dangers of this hobby is that I've had to eat quite a lot of pudding to get enough pots to do this experiment. An absolute heinous disaster, I'm sure you'll all agree. Next up, I'm going to try cat litter. Don't worry, Citadel haven't started making their own cat litter brand, otherwise my cats will be crossing their legs quite a lot. Let's put some of that into here. It's probably way too much, but we'll find out in a second. I like to use this for big rocks and things, but maybe I can just splat it straight onto a base without having to put it on top. Yeah, way too many rocks in there, but that's fine. Get my hex. In much the same way as the charcoal, it's much more difficult to work around, simply because it's so lumpy. But there we go. That's probably enough on there. There we go. Back to the Cyberhaggis science sheet. Oh, I've got enough glue on that. Or maybe it's too heavy. Cat litter. Right, on to the next one. Next is the coconut fiber lizard insect substrate that I use for my swamp bases. I'm quite interested to see how this one will turn out, because this is quite finely ground stuff. Let's have a look at it. As you can see, it's quite finely ground. I think it might mix in well with the wall filler. And give it an interesting texture. And now there's a problem that I didn't anticipate, I probably should have. It's drying out the wall filler. probably making it a bit less sticky, so I'm going to need a bit more wall filler, I think, on this one. It's clumping together. Again, it seems to be giving it a nice texture. Let's see if that sticks. Hexagon. And you see that's just not sticking because it's just too dry. So I'm going to need another blob of wall filler. Just to add to it. Feels a bit better. Yeah, that's definitely better. There we go. Add to the science sheet. Cocoa fiber. And let's move on again. Now here's one probably all of you got access to. I'm going to use some tomato and mascarpone. No, actually it's static grass. I don't know what's going to happen with this. I imagine it's probably going to dry it out a bit like the cocoa fiber did. But let's find out. It's going to make some nice green wall filler. Yeah, that's really clumping up. Horrible looking. Lovely. Right, let's stick that onto a hex. Suffering much the same problem as the cocoa fiber one did, where it is just also clumping together, making it quite difficult to spread on. I guess one of the things we'll find out once this is dry is how many of these actually still stick to the base. Because normally the wall filler just sticks on perfectly fine, but will any of these affect the actual drying process? That is why I am making this mistake, so you don't have to. Science sheet. Dear me. Sticking to me more than it is the paper. There we go. So, static grass. Onwards. This one is a bag of dried old herbs. So these were herbs that we had loads of and we didn't end up using them, so they were kind of past their best really. So I'm going to mix some of these in. These smell really nice. I use these for leaf litter and just sort of general undergrowth. Now normally my disaster desk smells of, that is way too much, smells of laser cut wood. But today it's going to smell like oregano. Don't know which I prefer really, the laser cut wood probably, if I'm honest. Right, let's get a blob of wall filler, stick that in. Again, I think this is probably going to clump up. Very much like the cocoa fibre did. I'm probably adding too much of the actual substrate than the filler. So I think I'll add in a little bit more filler there. Make it flow a bit better, if that's the word you could use for something that looks like that. There we go, that's a much better flow to that. It should stick better. Let's give it a sniff. It smells great. Add it to our hex. There's a chap that comes to some of our bolt action tournaments, and he has got a army that he has based using entirely with herbs. And let me tell you, they smell fantastic. Okay, back to the Cyber Haggis patented science sheet. We've almost filled our top row here. And that is herbs. Herbs. Let's find out what comes up next. In this next one, these seed pods I got from Serious Play again. Now these, very good for leaves and leaf litter. Hopefully you can see there that they've got a sort of leaf shape to them. Stick those in my pot. Get some wall filler. I think I'm going to need some new wall filler shortly because this one's starting to dry out a bit. And these are clumping up a bit again. A big solid bit of wall filler there. Like I said, it's drying out. I'm going to need some new soon. I think I could probably add in some more of the leaves into that actually. These will probably clump up a bit in the same way that the herbs did, but hopefully give a different texture. Who knows? You will once you've watched the end of this video. Get off! There we go. Flat that out a bit. Get off some of the excess. There we go. Onto the science sheet. I need to clean some of this off my hand first. There we go. Science. You thought I was going to put it straight on top of that one, didn't you? Let's start a new line. Leaves. Right, let's find out what else I can stick into this stuff. I had a bit of a weird thought. What would happen if I put some still water into it? Would it make it all globby and horrible? Will it just water it down and not do much else? Will it dry out in some fantastically weird and wonderful pattern that we can use in the future? Well, you're going to find out now. because I'm going to do it for science and for you. See if we can get a decent blob of this stuff. Struggling there with that. Stick for some reason. It's not really tough enough. There you go, I think that's a decent amount. Now, how much of this to put in? Yeah, that seems like a goodly amount. It's watering it down. But how will it dry? Will it dry in a kind of opaque, or will it dry in a some more see-through fashion? I think it's just going to be slightly thinner. Wall filler. But them's the breaks on making mistakes so you don't have to. Yeah, I think that's probably just going to dry slightly thinner wall filler, but I guess we'll find out. Back to the science sheet. Label that one. Still water effect. I've gone off the side there a bit. How annoying. Right, let's move on. Hopefully it's something a bit less crazy. I was wrong, it's just as crazy, it's probably worse. I'm going to stick some glitter in. Because why not? I actually bought all this glitter because I needed a tiny amount of red for the ruby slippers on my Wicked Witch of the West warband for Frostgrave. And I've ended up with absolute tons of glitter that I'm never going to use on anything else. That is not glittery enough. That's more like it. You never know, it might end up being some amazing texture that everyone uses forevermore on every miniature they ever make. A man can dream. Yay, glittery. Science sheet. I think it's appropriate it's underneath the sand there because I think it's probably going to end up exactly like that. But we will find out, you and I. Got some Battlefield rocks. I'll put it the right way around. But basically what this is just ground up cork with a massive markup. Stick some of that in. It can't hurt. I'm not going to accidentally create gelignite, am I? Unless... No, I better not. Nobody wants their miniatures to actually explode on the battlefield. Unless... No, they don't. That actually looks like a good proportion I've got in there. I gotta say, I'm really enjoying this. It's messy, it's creative, it's also science. Some of the things I love the most in the world. Allowing to get my hands in there. You don't often get a chance to just smash your hands in amongst things when you're creating them, so I really love that. Let's get that out of the way. Add it to the sheet of science. And I'm just going to call this one what it is. Cork. Let's find out what's next. I suddenly remembered we actually had two different types of cat litter in the house. So this one is from Lidl. You can see it's different from the first one. The first one was from Tesco. And these ones, you can see they're a lot more sort of bouldery, a bit more rocky. And if I was a sort of gaming company or painting company that had a loose sense of morals and ethics, I'd probably buy that at £2 for 10 kilos and then box it up for £4 for 100 grams, but I'm not that kind of person. So let's add in some of the wall filler to that. These are a lot more bouldery than the other one. So I think I've probably got way too much in there. I'm not even sure how these are going to turn out. Clumping together like the other one did. No real surprise there. There we go. Back to the sheet of science. And I'm going to need to amend my top entry to read Tesco's cat litter and this bottom one as Lidl's cat litter. I can't imagine it'll make a huge amount of difference, but we don't know that yet. Cat litter. Lidl. Cat litter. Tesco. We've got quite a few selections there already, but onwards and upwards, really just grabbing at whatever I can, seeing if it'll work. So I've got some torn up tissue paper. It could give us a nice sort of paper mache effect. It might just turn into a horrible globby mess. Either way, it's a win, as far as I'm concerned. Got more of that on my actual fingers than onto the the coffee stirrer. Let's see, I think I probably need more of the wall filler to go onto that one. Oh dearie me. Now, you know, you can see already it has given it a sort of different texture, so that's a win, in my opinion. A win for science. And let's see if it even goes on. Well, I think I'm going to need to smash this on with my hands because it's quite sticky. It's yeah, it's given out, as I suspected, it's given a very paper mache effect. That's okay then. Right, let's get that out of the way. And stick it to the rest of the experiment. Tissue paper. I have got one last clean pot. Don't worry, I'm not going to waste the others. I'm going to clean them out. And I've got some cotton wool. I don't even think this will mix together. let's find out if it will or not. Right here, right now, on the Cyberhackers channel. I think I'm going to need quite a lot of wall filler for this one. Let's see if we can get a good blob going. There we go. I think I'll tear it a bit off a bit first. Probably use a bit less. That is mixing, kind of. It's formed one sort of big lump. Oh, that feels really horrible. Oh, look at that. Oh, that might actually give quite a nice effect. Once it's dry, we'll find out. It's kind of gone all wispy, and as you can see, it sort of pulls apart. It might do something, it might not. Let's go to the science sheet and add that in. Going to be one short of a double row. That's really going to set my OCD off. Right. Cotton wool. And I think we'll leave it there because I have run out completely of my pots and I've run out of things to put it in. So here's our selection. So we've got the filler, we've got sand, we've got charcoal, the Tesco cat litter, cocoa fibre, static grass, those herbs, the leaves, added the still water effect, some glitter, cork, the cat litter from Lidl, tissue paper and cotton wool. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave these to dry for probably 24 hours. Then I'm going to spray paint them grey and give them a wash of black ink so that we can see what sort of textures we've gotten out of them. As you can see, I've used every single one of my pots and made quite the mess in doing this experiment. There's more. Here's more. So, like I said, I'm not going to waste all these. I don't like using things and then just getting rid of them. So I'm going to go wash these out and I will see you in a bit with the results. The science sheet. So what I've done, I spray painted them grey and then I've given them a wash of watered down black ink. Then I've given them a light dry brush of some grey and then increased that up with white just to increase the contrast a bit, make it stand out a bit better. Now let's have a closer look at each one in turn, see what conclusions we can draw, if any. First up are two controls, so no filler, the ink didn't even sit properly on that. The filler, normally I would cover that up with more substrate or with static grass or whatever, it's just to give a baseline of earth and to cover up any tabs or whatever. This is so we can compare and contrast the others, basically. Sand, it's giving you a sort of rough texture. I think you could use that on something without having to add just sanding on top. It's kind of mixed it in together. It's quite nice. I can imagine using that on something. Charcoal, it's kind of giving this lumpy effect. I don't think it's too bad. Maybe some sort of rough ground. The Tesco cat litter, and for our international visitors, I should say that Tesco is a British supermarket. It's lumpy. I think if you used that over a large area, it'd probably look okay. Cocoa fibre, well, looks pretty much like the sand. Not a huge difference there. Static grass has given a weird sort of effect. I can see that being used for something. It's quite an interesting texture to it. Herbs have kind of created this rocky effect, which is odd. It's not really what I was expecting. Those seed pods, again, pretty much the same as the herbs. The seed pods are more expensive. I would go with the herbs. Still water created this weird effect, so it looks quite similar to the filler the base filler, but it's a lot smoother. It feels really strange. Probably not worth doing, to be perfectly honest with you. The glitter is odd, hasn't really done anything. I expected it to look like the sand, but it doesn't. The cork, just lumpy, hasn't really done much. The Lidl cat litter, and again to our international friends, Lidl is a British, although originally German supermarket. It's strange, it was different from the Tesco cat litter. It almost began to dissolve in the filler, which is a bit strange. But it's given a kind of different texture. Tissue paper, well, hasn't done much, was difficult to work with. Solid pass. And then finally the cotton wool has given a sort of similar effect to the static grass in a way. That sort of fibrey look to it. Could be good for some sort of natural or unnatural tree basing or undergrowth. Anyway, those are my experiments. Hopefully some of them will be of use to you. Every good experiment needs a conclusion, and I would say that, yeah, some of these are worth doing. Most of them probably aren't. The sand, charcoal, probably the one or the other of the cat litters. The Tesco one seems to be that chunkier. It didn't melt as much, didn't dissolve as much really. Static grass and the cotton wool give a similar effect. Cotton wool's cheaper, go with cotton wool. Same with the leaves and the herbs. They look roughly the same. The herbs are a lot cheaper. You can get them out of any supermarket. I would just use them. Others, tissue paper, the glitter, the cork, probably not worth doing. The still water gave a weird smooth effect, which is quite nice, but there's probably a better way of doing that, to be quite frank with you. If you have any mad ideas that you don't want to take part in, but you would like me to try, please let me know. We'll see you soon. Take care.